And the Mishnah starts off with several Mishnahs that talk about the number 10, and then they talk about the number 7, and they talk about the number 4. So let's go back, just look at the Mishnah just briefly, just to get a little feeling of what's going on here. Pirkei Avos chapter 5, right? I'm just reading it to you in English. With 10 utterances, God created the world. Why did he create the world with 10 utterances? To punish the evil people and to give reward to the righteous people that are either trying to destroy or trying to uphold the world that God made with 10 utterances. He could have created it with one utterance, but he took all this effort to show that the world is important. That's Mishnah 1. Mishnah 2, 10 generations from Adam until Noach, 10 generations from Noach until Abraham. The 10 generations till Noach all did sins until Noach came along and saved them all. Actually, God destroyed all the other previous nations. God wanted to destroy the whole world, but Noach kept the world going. And Abraham, from Noach until Abraham, there was also 10 generations of sinners, idol worshippers, etc. And Abraham, he was the first righteous one that came. He got the reward of all of them. Gimel, 10 tests. God tested Abraham with 10 trials, and he stood all of them. And the explanation, the commentary explains what these 10 trials were. We're getting closer to our Mishnah. We're in Mishnah Dalet, Mishnah Hey. 10 miracles were done for our forefathers in Egypt, and 10 more at the sea, at the Red Sea, Yam Suf. 10 plagues God brought on the Egyptians, and 10 more in Egypt, and 10 more on the sea. 10, the disappointments. The Jews disappointed God in the desert. All right, here we go. Now we're up to now these all were number 10s. Here's another number 10. Listen to this. 10 miracles happened to our forefathers in the temple. What were they? He's going to list them. And they'll explain them. No woman ever miscarried from the smell of the meat in the holy temple. What does that mean? There's a law, interesting law, on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year, and everybody's supposed to fast. Even pregnant women are supposed to fast. It says if a pregnant woman, she wants to eat, so it says she should eat. You give her a little bit at one time, but if she wants, so it says why? Because a pregnant woman wants to eat on Yom Kippur, as it's not she that wants to eat, it's the baby inside of her womb that wants to eat. And we're worried that it will come out early, that she'll have a miscarriage, so we can feed her. So there were pregnant women, everyone had to go up. The pregnant woman went up to the holy temple, and the smell of the meat was all through Jerusalem because they were making sacrifices. And so it was a miracle that there was also pregnant women that came up, and not one woman ever miscarried. All these miracles are pretty mundane miracles because there were bigger miracles, it seems. For instance, in the holy temple, the first holy temple, and anyway, there was fire, a ball of fire in the form of a lion that came down from heaven and ate the sacrifices. And that's not one of the miracles that's mentioned here. Okay, in any case, 10 miracles. Miracle number 1, a woman never miscarried from the smell of the burning offerings. There was never a fly seen in the holy temple where the meat was being slaughtered. sometimes they were slaughtering tens of thousands of animals. There's blood all over the place. You figure one fly would come in there. I mean, the thing was open also. It was open on the top. It was open. They didn't have any netting, and there weren't any, what was lights that zapped them or something like that. A fly never went. Number 3 miracle. Lo ira keri le Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippurim. The Kohen Gadol, the high priest, never had a seminal emission. That makes a person impure, and that would disqualify his service. He wouldn't be able to serve in the Holy Temple. He would have to wait, a day or two. Never happened. Lo kibu geshamim shel atze maracha. Rain fell all the time. There was rain, especially in the winter. There was always rain, and the Holy Temple worked, 24/7, 365. The Holy Temple was going all the time. So rain poured down. Sometimes there was pouring rain, a blessing of rain. You figured it would put out the fire on the altar. The outside altar there was no ceiling. It was in the outer courtyard, not the outer courtyard, the inner courtyard, if you want to call it. Nevertheless, there was no roof over it. Fire never put it out. Lo nitzcha ruach et amod ha'ashan. The wind never caused the smoke that went up from this from the altar to waver. It wouldn't disperse or like wind. What does wind do to smoke? There was never any any mold or anything like this in the Omer and in the 2 breads for the holiday of Shavuot. Omer is what was brought right after Passover, after the first day of Passover, and the 2 breads, that was the 2 breads of chametz that was brought for the holiday of Shavuot, and the lechem apanim. Lechem apanim was bread that waited the whole entire week in the holy, and it was eaten just once a week, and it would sit there the whole week. There was no refrigeration, and it never became moldy or anything. We'll learn about this. All the Jews would fit in to the Holy Temple. One second, I'm going to go here. They would fit into the Holy Temple, hundreds of thousands of Jews. And when they were all standing, they were all pushed in together. It was tremendously crowded. And when the Kohen Gadol, especially on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol would come out, as they would all bow down, when they bowed down, as there was room for everybody. How did that happen? Well, it's a miracle. And there was no a snake or serpent that bit anyone or stung anyone in Jerusalem forever. Israel is in the what is it? The Middle East. So there's scorpions and there's snakes. I found in my house 3 times scorpion. Amazingly, it was always like on the first floor, or it was just somewhere. One time it was in the laundry room. But amazingly, it just showed up. Very ugly animal, scorpions. Woo! Tremendously ugly. Built for destruction, just to destroy and make pain. I don't think there's any benefit from them at all. V'lo omar adam lechavero, and no one ever said, there's no place for me in Jerusalem. It's difficult. No, I couldn't find a place to sleep in Jerusalem, even though that all of the Jews would come up and to the holidays in Jerusalem. There was always a place. Let's see if the Kahati, he gives a more detailed explanation. Ready? 10. By the way, I'm sorry, I know I've asked this a lot of times, but do you see my pointer? My pointer running around here? No? That's just for me?
Not right now.
You don't see my pointer. Well, I cannot activate that. You did?
Yeah, when you were doing the Chumash, we saw it.
Yeah, but for some reason, when I bring Kahati here...
Yeah, because it's from the...
it's from my cellular phone. Okay.
It doesn't work.
Okay. All right, I'll try to bring it up to the top of the page then. Here we go. 10 miracles happened to our fathers in the Holy Temple, Ve'eluhem, and these are them. Aleph, Lo ipila isha muberet, a pregnant woman never miscarried her child, mireach basar hakodesh, from the smell of the holy meat, shel hakorbanos, of the sacrifices, because this is a law, that a woman that is pregnant, that smells the smell of food, you can give her that food, even if the food is forbidden food. All right, I give the example of Yom Kippur. even if the food is forbidden. Right? She passes by a place where they're eating, I don't know, roasted camel or something, and she smells a pregnant woman, and she says, wow, I really want that. So they give her the food. You should give her a little bit. This is less than a kazai. Anyway, they give her to her until she calms down. How can you give her just because she wants a piece of camel meat? What's this? It says, because if she doesn't eat it, chaya and the life of the woman and her fetus are endangered. And there is nothing that stands before the danger, endangering life, except for idolatry and killing someone else, it said. This miracle was in the Holy Temple, even though that the reach sli, that she smelled the roasted meat and also the boiled meat from the sacrifices. The boiled meat was only in the nazir. The sacrifices was, it spread out. Nevertheless, it never happened that a michshal, something bad, or a takala, to any woman by means of the. So women didn't have to worry about going up to Jerusalem in the holidays. Lo hisriach basar. Next thing, second miracle, the holy meat, the meat from the sacrifices, never rotted. Never rotted. I mean, the base of this, like we said, worked all the time. So in Israel, the summer, there's no rain, right? It's not like in America that rains. Summer is like hot every day, and there's no rain. So how could it be that meat would be left out and it wouldn't rot a little? Sometimes, even though there's kadoshim kalim, there are some sacrifices called kodshim kalim, like a free will offering. The Kohanim could eat it, and the owner also could eat their portion 2 days and 1 night. The days in the summer are very, very hot. Nevertheless, the meat, you leave it out for 2 days. Nevertheless, there was never any bad smell from the meat. Some people explain lo hisriach shehif'il behif'il. It didn't make something else smell. Kolomer shalbasar lo hisriach et yedei hakohanim hamataplim bo. The meat did not make the hands of the kohanim that are dealing with it smell. Oh, here, 1 second. I got this thing over here. 1 minute. 1 second. Look at this. I had this thing over here. All right. Where did I go? What did I do here? Sorry. Oh, I see. I'm moving the wrong thing over here. What's this over there? I'm sorry. I'm trying to all right. Yeah, Beis Hamikdash. Okay, let's go down further. Sorry. I just saw an opportunity to get a pointer over here, and it eluded me. All right, here we go. All right, so the meat never made the Kohen's hands smell. Very good. Gimel, put it up on the top here. Lo nira zavuv bebeit hamitbachayim. There was never a fly in the holy, in the place in the holy temple. How would it go? In the holy temple. Well, let's see what he says. Ba'azara. And there were tables of shayish, of marble, that after you slaughtered the offerings, they would put the offerings. Remember, we learned there was one table that was made of marble and the other one was made of silver. Remember, one had on it the vessels that they used, and one of them had the meat. So on the meat, they would splash water on it. Even though the meat was always there on this table, there was never a fly there. Never a fly. Okay, a person could say, so it's not such a big miracle. Not only that, who saw it? Who saw this miracle? The only people that were allowed there were the Kohanim. Anybody else could not go in there. So only the Kohanim saw the miracle. Nevertheless, it was a miracle. Lo ira keri, the Kohen Gadol never had a seminal emission. Lo ira lo mikra laila, that did not occur to the Kohen a it's called a seminal omission, pasul, this would disqualify him for serving in the temple for one full day. Since it's an impurity that comes from his body, so this would be a davar meguna mechuar yoter mishar tumas. This would be a thing which would be unacceptable, not nice, more than other disqualifications, like if you would touch a dead rodent or something. And it would be a shame for him, an embarrassment for him. But other types of impurity, like touching a sheretz, for instance, he touched a mouse or something, or touched this or similar, this did happen. Therefore, there would be another Kohen, a replacement, a Sgan Kohen, like we find in the Mishnayot of Yoma in the Gemara Mishnah, is Maisa Kohen Gadol She'ira Lo Pasal Omina Lo Yosef Ben Elam Tachtav. They would have a Sagan, a Kohen, an assistant Kohen, that if something happened to the Kohen, that they would replace him. But, so there were other disqualifications that did happen, but this disqualification that it came in an emission from his body, which was a sort of a shameful thing, never happened. Next, lo kibu geshamim et etze amaracha, that rain never extinguished the fire that was on the altar. Afal pi even though shemizbeach hachitzon, even though that the outer altar was in a revealed place. That was miracle number 5. Miracle number 6, lo nitzcha haruach amor ashen. The wind never made the pillar of smoke that came from the outer altar, it never made it waver. Sha'ashana ace, that the cloud, the smoke that came up from the fire, ba'amaracha, on the outer altar, was haya mitmer va'ola kadekel, that it would go up like a tamar, it would go up like a palm tree, ka'amud yashar, in a straight pillar. And amazingly, the wind never made it sway. You would always see this pillar of smoke on. And the Rambam, he writes, Be'et hakrava haya avir nach. He says, whenever there would be a sacrifice and they would burn the animal, there wouldn't be any wind. The wind would stop. Next, 7th miracle in the Holy Temple. And like I say, why was it such mundane miracles? Because again, the point of Judaism is, like we say, dira b'tachtonim, that miracles should happen even in the most mundane things. So miracles happened in the flies. A fly didn't enter. The flies partook in the miracle. The wind, right? There was no wind when there was sacrifice. The wind, it joined in the miracle. Lo nimsa pasal b'omer. There never was found any disqualification in the Omer. The Omer was brought from barley. It was brought from barley. And when was it? On the day after Passover, the first day after Passover. Passover is the 15th of Nisan. They brought it on the 16th. That's when we start Sfirat HaOmer. V'hu bola hatir. This comes to permit the Tavua Chadasha, the new. This comes to make permission, to permit us to eat, to use the new produce that was brought, the new crop of wheat that was brought to eat. If there was something wrong with this Omer offering, then it would be impossible to bring another Omer in its place. Why? Because there was a big process on how they would harvest it on the 16th. And they only would harvest just enough for this offering. They wouldn't, Hilchach, therefore, I'm sorry, I said I would keep it up to the top. Hilchach, therefore, if there was something wrong with the Omer, then you would be stuck. They only brought enough because they knew that every year it would never be disqualified. So they only brought enough for one. They didn't, even the Kohen, it said, had a replacement. The Omer, there was no replacement. Also, there was never anything wrong with the Shtei Halechem, with the 2 loaves of bread. Now, generally speaking, in the Holy Temple, you couldn't bring chametz. into the Holy Temple. All the bread that was in the Holy Temple was, how do you call it? Unleavened bread. That's what it is. Unleavened bread is. It doesn't rise up, right? Unleavened bread. Unleavened bread. Unleavened bread. The only two examples were the Korban Toda, a Thanksgiving offering, that you brought 40 loaves of bread, 4 different types of bread offerings, and one of those types, there were 40 loaves. 10 of those loaves was chometz, and the other example was on Shavuot, the holiday of Shavuot. At the end of the Sfirat Omer, they would bring what they call a shtei halechem. It would bring wheat. Shalvo mechita, they would bring wheat, brand new wheat, on the holiday of Shavuot, in order to permit wheat, the new wheat, to be brought to the altar. To make menachos, bread offerings. The Omer permitted the crop to be eaten, but this permitted it for the altar. Kavan, since you cannot push it Shabbos off or Yom Tov, so they had to cook it, bake it on Yom Tov. These 2 loaves for Shavuot. Therefore, if there would happen something that would disqualify it, then they wouldn't be able to bring the sacrifice, since its time is set, and you wouldn't be able to make it up. So miraculously, nothing ever went wrong with this bread, the shtei halechem. Nothing ever went wrong with it. Again, if something would go wrong with these 2 loaves of bread, of chometz bread that they had to bring on Shavuot, as they wouldn't be able to replace it, because the only time they could cook it was on Shavuot, bake it. And there was the lechem apanim. What was the lechem apanim? Shayu ofim oto be'erev Shabbat, orchim oto al shulchan lamachrat b'Shabbat. Okay, when we learned, remember we learned briefly about the Holy Temple. So we learned that outside, that you went the Holy Temple, there was what's called the women's section, and then you went up a little, there was what's called the part of the Israel section, and then you went up a little, there was the outer altar, and then there was the big building called the Heichal. When you went into the Heichal, the first thing you would meet was there was this little altar, where the golden altar, where they offered bread, offered incense, and on the right side was this weird table that had 6 shelves on it. And the shelves, there was 6 on the right, 6 on the left. The shelves were like divided in the middle. And on these shelves, each shelf had a bread that was shaped weird. It was shaped like a U. It was also matzah, but it was thick. They would put there was 12 loaves, 6 on one side, 6 on the other side, 12 loaves. Now, these 12 loaves were, here we go. This was arranged on this table, on Motzi Shabbos. And it would be there until the next Shabbos, 6 days. 6 days. And then it would be given out to the Kohanim to be eaten on Shabbat. If there was something wrong with it, then the table would remain without any bread. You couldn't make it in the middle of the week. It had to be brought Motzi Shabbat. But there was a miracle. And there was never anything wrong with any of these breads. Not something that's called the show bread, but it's really the face bread, lechem apanim, because it had all these faces. It was like a U, so it had all these faces to it. And not to the shtei halechem, the 2 breads that were brought on Shavuot, and not for the Omer. That, we've gotten up to miracle number 7, miracle number 8. Omdim tzafufim. Everyone was standing crushed and together. When the Jews went in up for the holiday, all the Jews had to go up for the holiday, right? All the men. The men had to go 3 times a year to the holiday. So there was tzafifus rabba azara. There was tremendous pressure in the azara. It's just called the Ezrat Nashim, but really it was filled with men. And the time when women would come, the women would come, they built special like balconies over there. That was on Sukkot. Anyway, there was tremendous, you can imagine, there was hundreds of thousands of people, who knows how many, millions of people, I don't know, stuffed in there. The Bartanur, it says, Tzafufim means, Tzafufim doesn't mean just they crushed. It means there were people that were floating. Saf al panei hamayim, mirov hakal, because there were some people pushed one the other until some of them were off the ground and they were standing in the air. I can honestly say that I experienced that by the Rebbe. It used to be on Rosh Hashanah when the Rebbe would blow the shofar. The Rebbe would stand on the bima, which was in the middle of the shul, on Rosh Hashanah, and the shul was packed. It was packed. This was like up in the 1990, 1991. The shul was packed. You couldn't imagine how packed it was. And when the Rebbe would come out and he would sound the shofar, everyone would push to the front so that the whole back behind the half of the shul was totally empty. And all those people that were packed in the shul, they would be double packed, right, vacuum packed in the front. And I can honestly say there were a lot of times for a lot of people that your feet did not touch the ground. And if one person would move a little bit, everybody would move. You would be thrown from one end to the other. I still remember so clearly, there were a couple times when I was lucky and I stood right in front of the Rebbe, right in the mud. And in a way, it was the most frightening thing, one of the more frightening things that I've ever seen. The Rebbe's face actually turned colors. It turned colors until it was red, until it was like a deep purple when he was sounding the shofar. Never saw anything like it. Never saw anything. Okay. Anyway, there were mishtachavim ravachim. Everyone was packed, but when they bowed down, afal became nevertheless naselem nes. There was a miracle when everyone would bow down. When would they bow down? When they heard the name of Hashem. They would all bow down. Revach shel arba amos ben kolish. Everybody had 4 amas around, like 6 feet around each person. This is only on Yom Kippur. So no one would hear the confessions of other people and be embarrassed. So everybody would bow down and they would say, Hashem, I did this bad thing, I did this bad thing. They would speak directly to God. There were, who knows, 1 million people stuffed in there. They couldn't stand up. And when they came to bow down, they could. Miracle number 9. Lo hizik nachash va'akra b'Yerushalayim me'olam. There was never a snake or a serpent that hurt anyone. Afal pishoyu mitzuyim shamarba, even though that there were snakes and scorpions in Jerusalem. Lo omar adam lachavero. A person never said, Tsar li amakom, it's very difficult for me to find a place to sleep in Jerusalem. Like I say, 3 times a year, all the males would come. Shlosh pamim b'shana yireh kol zechurcha. Every male had to come to the Holy Temple. Kolomar. Dechuka li asha. V'kan she'eni yochol lit parnes. It's very difficult for me. I have to come all the way up to Jerusalem, and I can't make any money. I have to leave my house. Ve'elech ve'ador chutz liYerushalayim, that I can go and live outside of Jerusalem. Maybe I'll go outside of Jerusalem. Shekol adorim b'tocho hayo kodesh baruch hu mefarnesam ad shelo nitztarech echad mehem lechavero v'letzeit misham liyot metultal. No one ever said, I'm coming to Jerusalem. I have to be here. Like it's a long journey here. And I'm going to have to make a long journey back. That whole time, I can't make any money. You know, I'm be stuck. And not only that, it's hard to find a place in Jerusalem. I'll go outside of Jerusalem and rent a place. No one ever had to say that. Some people say that the intention is the Ole Regel. It's talking about the people when they came up from the holiday, Shekul Matsu Makom. Everybody found a place to live, to sleep, and there was no one meitzar. No one was difficult when he was in Yerushalayim because of the difficulty of the place. Some people say that's the Bartanur Rebbe Ben and Rabbeinu Yonah. Some people say that no. What does it mean? Lo yatzar amakom. No one said lo omar adam lechavero. No one said is bad. In other words, what does it mean? No Jew complained. Oh, even though that it was really difficult when everybody came up for the holidays in Jerusalem, no one felt this difficulty. Because people loved Jerusalem and the Holy Temple so much. And also everybody loved everybody else. So here we have a big miracle. Jews didn't complain. You realize what that means? For a Jew not to complain, this is maybe the biggest miracle of all. That Jews did not complain. They were in Jerusalem, and in fact, it was very difficult to find a place to sleep, and it was really, really crowded, and no one ever complained. 410 years, nobody complained. Big miracle. That's the first temple. 420 years for the second temple. The Midrash Shmuel, it explains the Lichaora, the majority of these things, they are Sarchi Gavoa. Why does it say Asur Nisim Nasa La'avotenu? All of these things that are done, they are miracles for Hashem. There was no flies on the meat. That doesn't affect the people, right? The cloud of smoke, it never worried. That was a miracle that happened for us. Didn't happen for us. All these things that we're talking about, except maybe for the last one, that nobody was complained about or nobody got stung by a scorpion or a snake, but most of them are talking about things that happened in the Holy Temple itself. But all of these miracles were made for our forefathers, for the ones that were in the time of the temple. In order that they would understand and they would take a lesson. That every miracle that happens, everything is a miracle, but everything the miracle that happens to give us a hint on the power of holiness. In other words, down to the smallest detail, everything was miracles. And how God deals with those who do his will, that even the smallest details will be taken care of. Now let's go back to the laws of Shabbos. Laws of Shabbos.